Welcome, everyone. What an act to follow. As marketers, what do we think about this? What an act to follow. Well, thanks for spending time with us today. We're going to take a little bit of a trip in a time machine. As we know, AI is pervasive today, becoming much, much more important, but we're going to look ahead into the year 2030. But before I do that, let me introduce our panel. Sherina Smith, the CMO of American Family Insurance. Robert Tass, a partner at McKinsey and former CMO of 1-800-Flowers. Bonin Bough, co-founder and chief strategy officer of Group Black and a world-renowned marketer. And Gerry D'Angelo, a senior McKinsey advisor and also from P&G and Mondelez.
Thank you.
So folks, thank you for joining me and thank you for taking a quick ride in this time machine. When we look at AI right now, we see it becoming pervasive, a ton of questions. But in 2030, what is our world going to look like? What's the human oversight going to be? Do you think AI is going to replace our teams? Is it going to extend our teams? Are the agencies going to change? What are your thoughts on a winning approach for the role of humans and human oversight in a world that has an Athena, a world that has AI amplification, and a world that can optimize in response to all the stimulus we put in market? Gerry.
Well, I've had a front row seat where the use of data and technology sometimes goes a bit wrong. So when I joined P&G in early 2017, one of the first things I was confronted with was the headline in the Times that said, brands funding terrorist content. And so I can see the downside of how the lack of transparency that you get through extensive use of data and technology can lead to some of those unintended consequences. What I would say, though, is that it's very, very hard to overlay human oversight to those types of processes. And probably the best way of doing that is to use data and technology as your safeguard for the data and technology that's being used. And you can either do that in advance through filtering, or you can do that on the back end through checking. I just think it's asking too much for humans to have that human involvement in data and technology that becomes so pervasive, and you've got so many decisions that are happening so quickly.
Too much, too fast.
Absolutely. It's asking too much of humans, I think, to be the ones checking that. So the advice that I give to the companies that I'm advising or to the marketeers that I'm still in contact with is that if you're going to be using data and technology to execute to enhance your performance, then use data and technology to make sure that things aren't going wrong and you're avoiding unforeseen circumstances.
Excellent. Sherina, you're sitting there with a brand that is all about trust. Mm-hmm. What do you think? How do you think humans will play into the trust equations? How can you take advantage of AI without breaking trust, causing concern? What do you think we'll be doing in 2030?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting tension point for us. So if you think about the insurance category, we're using lots of data. I mean, our whole product is really data. It's risk management. It's how do you think about statistical models and what risk does it assign a person, and then we charge a rate because of it, which feels very inhuman. And so a lot of our marketing challenge is how do you make a product that people don't actually want to think about or use feel very human, make you feel secure and protected. So when I think about like us and AI, I envision AI as an enabler to get to humanity. So the brand is really that bridge between all of the data work that's happening. It's a bridge between all of the low level, I'll call it like lower value work that we can drive out cost leveraging AI. And then the brand and human is really about how do we connect that to people and make it feel like we have a human core.
Excellent. Now, Robert, you've sat in multiple marketing roles. You advise many, many marketers now. You also advise CEOs. CEOs and CFOs are putting pressure on marketers to get money and get payback out of AI. How's that going to stress the system in 2030?
I mean, I think it's going to have radical impact, candidly. I think this is an amazing moment for marketing, candidly, for two reasons. One is that it's an opportunity to reinvent marketing in a way, the operating model itself, and how we make marketing, not just how we do marketing. And I think as we heard our panelists talk about data and tech being infused, we now have an opportunity to rewire the entire organization with AI to help power that brand connection. The second piece is that I think it's most fundamental, and I think Sherina was hitting on it really good, is that AI is not gonna have judgment, taste. It's not gonna be able to do those things. That's why we have people like Sherina and others and marketers on stage with us that are gonna help AI do that. AI is gonna absolutely be an enabler, but it's gonna be one piece of it with oversight of judgment and taste for these creative things that we do to build brands.
And Bonin, from your perspective, you've got an interesting and a global view, lots of different touch points. What do you think it's going to look like in 2030? What's good, what's bad?
First of all, what's up, Zeta Live? How are you? Are you good? Are you good? Let's go. David said GOAT, and I think he meant to include me with Sherina as well, but because you were so nice in that definition.
You are in the center by design.
I told you, I'm not a good middler. I'm just not. I like to be on the edges.
That's clear.
Turn up the volume.
No, but it's interesting because when we look at it, where my head is at right now, at least, is that it's not about product. It's about people and process, and it's about how are you going to weave all of the various tools together, but somebody has to be the architect. So I give an example. So there's this guy, Henry Hargraves, who's a photographer, and he shot some of those, the Hems campaign. He shot Warby Parker. During that time when DTC businesses, he shot all of them. But big photographer, Kiwi, he's got books and da-da-da-da. And, I just had a kid, and his wife and my wife know each other. They got young kids, so we're parent dating. And he's like, look, you should come. He's been using AI to create video for 3 years. And he's like, you should come and see and feel the process as it actually happens. And I'm like, all right, fine, I'll go. So I go to Brooklyn, which I never go to his studio. Hey, Brooklyn. We start off by just trying to find a fun fact, and I'll be quick. Fun fact we found was that in the 1800s, animals were put on trial for crimes against humans. So a pig chasing a kid in the field, insects being asked to vacate a certain area by a certain date because they were eating crops, like crazy. But so we start sketching out a little bit of an outline, like pets are part of the family, but it wasn't always like that in 1800s. He picks up ChatGPT, and this is where we start. He says, I need a 30 to 40 second script that blah, 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 blah. 30 to 40 second script. Literally, immediately, I do the voiceover. He says, okay, let's take each little piece. Let's go find some images. He goes, a donkey set in the 1800s that's in the witness box being yelled at by the judge. Boop, I don't like that donkey. Can you make it look like, and we're just creating. And all of a sudden, 4.5 hours later, we have a full 1.5-minute video that is mind-blowing. But he had to use so many different tools to create it, and that's the goal, I think. When we look at 2030, I'm not worried about AI taking people's jobs. I'm worried about people who know AI taking people's jobs. And that is gonna be who are architecting the usage of these tools and piecing them together in the right way, because there's not gonna be one big solution.
And Bonin, that makes great sense. At the end of the day, we're still marketers. We influence what people think, feel, and do, going back to David Ogilvy.
Only other thing I would say, which was interesting, and sorry to cut you off, was that it was the collaborator, because it would come back, like at the end we said, what would you put an animal on trial for? And I was like, make him pee in the pool. And it couldn't figure it out, and so instead make a bear pee, and there was a bear puking in the pool. We were like, oh, that was actually a lot better, and I don't have to put a bear peeing in the pool on my LinkedIn. But he kept saying it's the best collaborator he had because it comes up with ideas that he never thought of, or most likely other persons wouldn't think of. All right, sorry.
No, that was great. I've never had to have a panel where I talked about bears peeing in pools.
I mean,
so this is a first.
Never will.
This is a first.
Well, might not be the last.
But I do think it's important here, when we think about it as marketers, we are driving people's behavior, or at least influencing people's behavior, with a series of small nudges. That's not going to change. That tool will help us do it better. It will help optimize it. But I believe that prompt engineering is really writing a brief. But as we take a look back at this now, when you look at this and think about the marketing operating model, how are you going to run your organizations? How is your organization going to actually behave in this? What do you see AI changing? Bonin, you just touched on a lot of it, the production side, the collaboration side, the creation side. Robert, what do you think is going to change?
I think jumping on Bonin's perspective on the process side of things, I think AI is going to finally knock down the org chart. I think it's going to take all the different functions that have taken the 4 Ps and it's spread it across the enterprise. It's going to actually put the customer back in the center and allow us to serve them in a way that we all have dreamed of serving them, with personalized communication, the way the customer wants it, when they want it, where they want it.
I love that idea, and I think that's incredibly important because at the end of the day, it's connection to customer, and it's the ability to really be precise at scale and be able to put those small nudges and spend best. Sherina.
Sorry, I was going to add one more thing, I think, to build on that, which is, at the end of the day, what I'm super excited about AI is the insights. We struggle getting insights out to clients, to our companies, to our people, and sharing them and having them interpreted and ingested and act on it. AI is going to radically change that and make that a real thing.
Sherina, your company has switched to customer obsessed. There's no other word for it. Talk a little bit about that and what's it going to be like in 2030 with your segments and beyond?
Yeah, I agree with Robert. So I think of it in 2 buckets. One, I think of it as like, currently we do research, and from the time you do the research until the time it hits market or you turn it into action, it's basically losing value because the longer it sits, the less relevant it is. I think of AI as really being able to help us keep economic value to all the research and the insights that we get, because they'll come quickly, and we'll be able to leverage AI to get them in market at scale. So we talk about a data wheel, so the insights, the customer data, and the operational data. So to your point, there's a lot of data that as marketers we don't typically have access to, and when we do have access to it, our teams aren't always as adept at integrating it into customer insight and customer data to really get to something that's richer and fuller. The tool of AI to really be able to take all of those things together and come back with an insight that really helps drive business, helps to really touch where the consumer is headed, and helps us bring it to life, I think is going to be life-changing for us. And also, again, just the economic and value and efficiency we'll get. The other one that I think about is kind of what Bonin is sitting on from a creative value chain. So I would imagine going forward, there'll be the moment when you really need what I'll call like the equivalent of couture, fashion in creative, where you want like the best creative, you want it to be really authentic, and it's very high value creative. And there'll be the other end where it's quick, and you're going to leverage AI for the ways that you can get in the market quickly, and it can be a great tool for storytelling, it can be a great tool and a collaborator with your creatives to accelerate that, but likely driven by some of the insights that come at the top of your creative value chain. I think there's not going to be a lot of people in the middle that are mediocre. I think all the mediocrity in the middle will probably be obliterated because it'll be replaced by AI. I think the highest value of creatives will be at the top of that chain.
What's really interesting here, the theme I'm hearing is really customer at the center,
Yep.
customer obsession, customer insights. Concurrently, I'm hearing agile, the idea of agile marketing, but 10 times the speed, instant, people being able to work together. Gerry, what are you seeing out there along those lines?
Well, I'd like to build on some of the things that I heard earlier and just put a couple of proof points on the back of that, because P&G did some research with HBS and with Wharton Business School earlier this year. And they gave a bunch of teams AI tools, and then they saw what happened. And they saw definitely an increase in performance. So what happened was that the solutions that were coming back, generally they were coming back faster and they were more comprehensive. They also found that the silos that existed within the organizational, perhaps some of the artificial organizational silos that existed, started to collapse because the AI tools allowed people from different functions to bridge those gaps. And probably the most surprising thing was the positive impact from some of the teams, particularly the more junior people, because AI as a tool helped to flatten the expertise curve. So those are all the really positive things that are coming out, and it's worth bearing those things in mind when you hear some of the horror stories or potential horror stories about what it's going to do to the more junior and entry-level roles. So I would certainly look to some of those positives and some of those proof points coming from big companies like P&G.
Well, I think what's interesting here, another theme underneath this all, is that our organizations are artifacts, the split between marketing and advertising. If we're customer obsessed, that goes away. It's all about managing the touch points, bringing it together, having the data to allow you to surround that. And then those organization walls fall, and the underproductive middle, do I dare say that, may be a little bit challenged, may go away, but allows us to really go immediately for that connection to the customer. Bonin, bears, pools, what else have you seen out there?
I'm
I had to do
afraid.
it.
Let's be careful. I said I'm not a good middler. But no, so I think the reality is that first of all, we can say unproductive middle, which I don't disagree with conceptually, but the reality is what we're facing is a true reskilling of the organization around the usage of these tools, because what sits in front of us is not incrementality. So a lot of tech jumps are incremental, right? But what sits in front of us is, if you really want, like, can I get 40% better? Can I get 60% better? Like, that's the potential that's in front of us. And two examples. One, we have, my wife owns a baby food business. I say we because we bought it, but I bought it. Anyway, long story short. But, and so she founded it. It's a beautiful business. And I'm like, dude, what are we doing? Like, why aren't we the most AI forward company in the world? Like, let's go. And she's like, to be fair, she has a 5-month-old at home. She's like, I'm AI forward right here. And I'm like, okay, fine. But I literally just said, I said, let's go look and see what's the best ad creation platforms. 3 minutes later, we've got a slew of advertisements that are better than any of the stuff that we had been making before. And she's like, oh my God, now I can't stop her. But that's a transformation for a company, right? The stuff we did for PC Richards with Stan Smith is a transformation for a company that couldn't do it. But the biggest thing, I think, what I have experienced right now is that it's teaching us different skills that we don't know. And I use the example, if anybody has seen the movie AlphaGo, it's about Google teaching, the first Google AI being taught how to play Go, and it plays the European champion and destroys him. This guy's distraught, hand in his head, smoking cigarettes, he doesn't know what to do. So they go, no, come and teach it to go play the world champion. Everybody is like, oh, there's no way the world champion's gonna win, blah, blah, blah. The guy's there with his daughter, first game, pew, wipes him out. His daughter's crying like the whole world is on fire. Second game, pew, wipes him out. Except in that second game, it played what's known as the God move, because it figured that if I play this piece, I can win by 1. Now, Go is a game of territory. So humans are like, I want it all. The computer said a win is a win. Third game, pew, wipes him out. Fourth game, he wins. You're like, yes, humanity can win. Yes, we got it. Fifth game, pew, wipes him out. But what really happened was the game of Go, one of the most ancient games, was forever changed, because now the strategy is that I can win by 1. And so what it's doing is it's actually teaching us and collaborating with us differently and changing how we see the world. And I think that that's why, from an organizational perspective, encouraging the mass amount of usage of it is actually going to create fundamental jumps. That's where I think that's what I'm seeing.
I think that's a really cool idea, saying that basically we're going to learn from the artificial intelligence. It's not going to displace us, but it's going to grow us. It's going to evolve us. Sherina, what do you see that doing in your organization in 2030?
I think Bonin is, I agree. I think it is, I envision it as a tool that enables exponential shifts and change for our marketing team. I think a lot of the work that we do that is, I'll call it low value, and takes up the capacity of time that you have, that steals away your ability to think at a higher level, you'll get that time back. So I envision it as a capacity expander of the current people, because a lot of the other things they're spending time on, they won't need to spend time on. A lot of the foundational work and insights and data will be processed, and then they can add the human judgment, or what I would call like a human spark on top of that. So how do you get to the extra nuance for your creativity in brand building? How do you get to that extra nuance, and how do you find what's the next idea, the next culturally relevant thing that hasn't really exploded yet? But we spend a lot of time mining that right now as humans, and this could do it for us at scale.
And that idea, I think, as Bonin and you guys were saying, having a team focused on that customer, and then having these tools just enabling it without the lift that we have to use today to manage all the multiple tools. Gerry, what do you think about this?
About the future? The 2030?
The 2030 and where we're actually going to end up.
So I think, and this would have happened, I think, without AI. I think AI is just an accelerant in this. But just before the session earlier, we were asked, like, in one word, crystallize what brand building and marketing is about for you. And I said collaboration. And I think a lot of that was informed. I did a piece of qual research in the UK with 25 CMOs last year. And one of the things I realized is that for a long time, people in marketing have been saying, we allow us to seat at the C-suite and, decision-making for the organization. And what's happened now, CEOs and CFOs have said to CMOs, bring it, right? Like, you've been asking for this level of accountability. Now show it to us. So what's happened now, all this data and tech has ensured that brand people, marketing people, can have that level of accountability. But the other thing that's happened, and I think you'll really start to see this crystallize in the next 5 or 10 years, is that they're having to collaborate not just with their peers, but with their employees and their customers. And so I think the most successful CMOs in 2030 are the ones who've got to embrace that level of collaboration. And sitting at the top of that ivory tower as a CMO that used to be 10, 15, 20 years ago, just working exclusively with their advertising agency and being very, very, very narrow in terms of their marketing mix, those days are gone. And now the world of marketing has to encapsulate every single consumer touch point, whether it's the website or the mobile app or the call center, and not just the advertising. So for me, it's all going to be about collaboration.
So it's not only going to tear down the walls within marketing, but across the C-suite
100%.
overall, if you're truly customer obsessed.
100%.
Now, in our last 5-ish minutes, it's going to be a moment for introspection. When we think about this, what are the leadership skills, the traits, the governance models, and the decision-making frameworks that we as CMOs are going to have in place? What does our job become? Sherina.
I'm going to use one of your words that you use with me all the time. I think we become a convener, because I think we sit at the center with, if the customer's in the middle, and to your point, we'll be working across finance for how do we think about positive and profitable growth. We'll be working on whatever your organization is, product development, manufacturing. How do we ensure that we have that operational data that's coming in for product development and customer retention? I think of it in terms of how do you optimize the supply chain. I think of it in terms of the customer experience and all the digital tools that we use to enable human interaction or to replace human interaction. But really, a lot of that information comes to the center of where the CMO sits, which is really more of a convener to help remove obstacles within the organization to get to a customer-centric solution.
Robert, your take. If you go back to be a CMO in 2030, what will it be like? How will you govern?
With courage. No, I'm serious.
Do that now.
I do, a little. I do, I really mean that. I think that we as CMOs have to have the courage to lead through this new way of working. And we have to try. We have to try new things and go after those sacred cows. We can't keep doing campaigns the way we do. We can't keep thinking, well, compliance and risk operate that way and we can't change it. Well, we can. And I think that's the card we now have. And I think that's the biggest opportunity in front of us, to have courage, to give our people courage to try, learn, fail, and get better. I think that's the secret sauce.
That makes sense. And Bonin, some of the things you've been speaking about today and what I've heard you speak about in the past is kind of shifting almost from campaigns to conversation, facilitated by all this technology. What do you think will be in place in 2030 for us?
Well, I kind of go back to Rob, it's I talk about it, I call it hackonomy. How do you create value by breaking things? How do you break your organization, your process, but most importantly, how do you break yourself? And how do you wake up every single day to want to be anew? And I think that we don't do that. We like to set it and forget it, or we like to try to get things in place and say, okay, now that that's in place, but we don't move at the pace of the consumers. The consumers move. So we got Facebook right, and then they're like, oh my God, Twitter? Well, I don't know where I have this guy, but the consumer doesn't, they don't care. And so that piece, but I think the other piece is we have to, technology has, I think, made us less focused on creativity. And I think at the end of the day, and, Gerry and I worked together, and I think you were when Dana brought the person to present, a Brit, who talked about the most boring presentation you're gonna know about creativity. And he looked at, everybody says, I don't wanna win awards, I just wanna sell product. They said, actually, you wanna win awards. all the brands that won awards, they have two things. They grew faster, and they have price elasticity. And that's
Peterfield.
Yeah, Peterfield. Thank you. And that is creativity, creating perception that gets us to want to be close to that thing, have an emotional moment. That's why we carry a handbag, which probably costs, 1 penny of what we actually pay for it, because we're connected to it. And I think that getting back to that creative piece is important.
Excellent. Gerry.
I just go back to what I said earlier. I think the CMO of the future has to be like an Uber collaborator. I think there's a whole nother conversational stream in this area of creativity, but maybe not for today. But I think the most successful CMOs of the future are going to be ones that collaborate successfully both inside their organization and outside.
Excellent. We have a couple of seconds left. One word that you want folks to take away today about marketing for the future. What one word would you say?
I've given you my one word.
I'll come back to you at the end then. Sherina, what one word? And you can't use courage.
Storytelling.
Robert.
Speed.
Bonin.
Don't swim in my pool.
That's clear.
All you had to say was pool.
Or pee.
Gerry, any other?
Collaboration.
Excellent. And my word for you is thank you for taking the time with us. It's an exciting time to be a marketer. Enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you.